to the Dawgs podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dawgs podcast. Josh All alone with you guys today, and who's ready for a little bit of gossip? That's right, today we're going to dive into the rumors, mostly some of the news and notes and things like that coming out of the NFL Combine this past week, and primarily here this weekend. Things have been ramping up, lots of stuff going on, and who doesn't love a little bit of gossip during the offseason? That's what draft season is all about, in all honesty. There's smoke, there's mirrors, there's gossip, and then we don't really even get to find out what the truth was until the end of April. So until then, we're going to have fun going through everything coming out of Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium this week. So before we dive into all that, I want to let you guys know that the 500 episode celebration that we had scheduled for 2 weeks ago, and we had to reschedule and postpone, and we rescheduled for tomorrow on March 2nd, is now also being postponed and rescheduled again. So I promise we are going to do the 500 episode celebration. We had one of our special guests that was coming into the studio had a prior commitment that he overlooked and kind of misscheduled that whole thing. So we want to do this properly. I'm not feeling well. We got sick people all in this house right now. So probably better that we don't all get together in the studio anyhow at the moment. So for the time being, that 500 celebration is going to be rescheduled and on the shelf once again. But I do promise we are going to do it, and we are going to run those contests. So if you're interested in we're going to give away 3 Dawgs podcast t-shirts and a Browns jersey during that live show, whenever the heck it ends up being actually scheduled. And the way to do that, the way to be entered for that, for the Browns t-shirts, just be a Dog Pack member on YouTube, join our YouTube membership, and it's 99 cents a month. So it's real simple to do, and it doesn't cost you a whole lot, but it does help out the show. And then to be entered for the Browns jersey, be a Dog Pack member on our Patreon page at jointhedogs.com. Head over there, and that gets you access to the private Discord and the fantasy football leagues and all the fun stuff that we do year-round, 24/7. And, of course, you get entered for that Browns jersey. So just become a member before the end of that live episode, which will probably be rescheduled here in the next couple weeks at some point. But we'll keep you guys posted on when that is. It's a good time to remind you, make sure you tap that notification bell on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything new. So when we do reschedule the 500 episode celebration, you do get that notification and you know when it's going to be. Fingers crossed the next time we schedule it, third time's a charm. Hopefully we set that date and we actually are able to do it. So I've got Browns rumors out of Indianapolis, and I'm going to go through a couple articles posted by Jared Muller from Dogs by Nature. And he posted one of these on, let me see if I can get the actual date. Looks like it was Wednesday, and then the other one was today on Saturday, I believe. So just want to go through this stuff because, we can speculate all we want about what's going on with the Browns or what they're thinking, what they're doing. But when you get multiple reports out of, one event where everybody in the league, all the general managers, all the coaches, everybody is in this location for this event. So it's one thing to get rumors coming out from one source or one person saying, hey, I overheard this, or a source told me that. But when you start to hear multiple sources come to a consensus thought on a specific player or a team in a scenario, something like that, that's when you want to start to take a little bit of notice. Now, again, I'm not putting full stock into any of these things, but I want to give my opinions on some of the stuff that I'm reading coming out of Indianapolis. So what Jared was writing here, he said, what he's hearing so far. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Myles Garrett. And before I dive into this, there are some league-wide rumors that I want to dive into that do have somewhat of an impact on the Browns. And I'll get to those after I do these 2 pieces by Jared. But he said, what he's hearing so far, Myles Garrett will not be traded. Myles Garrett will not be extended, most likely. And he says Myles Garrett will get his current contract ripped up and a whole new deal signed. Now, As far as the timeline goes, I'm not sure when he was hearing these things. But the big story out of Indianapolis regarding Myles Garrett, and I know we're getting kind of sick and tired of talking about Myles Garrett and all the negative, spotlight he's putting the Browns in with his trade requests and all this stuff. Mary Kay Cabot reported that Andrew Berry is not opposed to, I forget the exact verbiage, but signing Myles Garrett to a blockbuster extension, putting him at $40 million a year average annual salary would make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the entire NFL, all that kind of stuff. And then that report came out one afternoon, evening, and the very next morning it came out that Myles Garrett said there will be no contract extension discussions, and his agents had slammed the door on that whole notion. So this whole standoff with Myles Garrett just continues to go on, and it's going to go on for a while, I'm sure. Just with the dead cap implications and everything, I don't see how the Browns can trade him, especially not before the draft. Now, as a post-June 1st type situation, the dead cap isn't quite as bad. It's a little more manageable. We'll see. But in terms of being traded before the draft, I think we need to quit looking at that as a reality, because I don't think it is. Let's see. A couple other things. He made a note about Matthew Stafford. We'll get to that. Says, okay, let me scroll down here. I don't want to talk about that stuff. He says, despite a recent report, Cleveland is not locked into taking a quarterback second overall. I don't think at this point in the draft process you can be locked into taking a specific player or position. There's still, over a month and a half or whatever to go before we even get to the draft. So that one, okay, whatever. Somewhat surprising to me, he says Cam Ward's fit with the Browns' new offense is not a concern, and they would be interested in selecting him second overall. We'll talk more about Cam Ward, a lot more about Cam Ward here in a minute. Says the Browns love Travis Hunter, but positional value and other options could allow them to pass on him. Have heard very little about Cleveland's interest, thoughts on Abdul Carter, which might speak even louder than what I'm hearing. That one was interesting to me. No surprise, but the Browns are not expected to be heavily involved in NFL free agency, cap implications, things like that. I don't see them spending real big, making any kind of big splashes in free agency. But he notes, as always, Andrew Berry is very active in trade talks with other teams, leaving no stone unturned. And this is the time of year that Andrew Berry starts working his magic with some of these trades. We've kind of noted that the last, 3 years, 4 years. It was Amari Cooper. It was Elijah Moore. It was Jerry Jeudy. Could the Browns trade for another receiver here in the coming weeks? It's not unlikely. It's a trend that the Browns have had. And I don't, especially with the way our receiver room's shaking out right now, which is very, very shallow, shall we say? I wouldn't be surprised to see the Browns make a move for another receiver. Let me see a couple other of this is the first article he put out. He said, after over a decade at Dawgs by Nature, he feels that the Browns' interest in Cam Ward is all smoke, but that is not the feeling of many others at the Combine. The feel around Indianapolis is that the New York Giants are not as high on Shedeur Sanders and would likely pass on him at number 3, meaning Travis Hunter would likely be the pick in New York. Despite all the noise around the Tennessee Titans loving Cam Ward, many expect them to select Abdul Carter and go hunting for a veteran in free agency. Not sure who they would be looking for there, but I did see other reports that said the Titans are still willing and hopeful with Will Levis and trying to make things work with him. Don't know how much of that is true. I wouldn't be if it were me. As for the free agent market, most teams, including the Browns, are preparing for fewer and fewer impact players. Now, this is important. I want to read this and then talk about this for a sec. The growing cap, owners' willingness, the growing cap, owners' willingness and pressure to use bonuses to spread out cap hits and smarter front offices mean the market is dwindling. Free agency is not what it used to be. I want to make that very clear for everybody out there on social media and just in the Browns fan base in general. You guys, if you're hopeful that the Browns can go fix the offensive line or get a top wide receiver or, a top safety or whatever the case may be in free agency, Don't be expecting that. The free agency is not what it used to be. We've talked a long time. I've said this for years, how the free agent market, specifically for wide receivers, top end wide receivers never hit free agency. Never. They are either traded or extended. Those are the only two outcomes for your top wide receivers. So that philosophy is now moving into other positions as well, where, you know, the cap went up again. I think, what was it, $279.5 million is the cap now this year, a big increase from last year. Teams are locking up, you know, their top players. They're able to lock up more of them. The way Andrew Berry and the Browns front office spreads the cap out, spreads the hits over multiple years and all this kind of stuff. The way they finagle and manipulate the cap makes it possible to keep more high-end players than what teams could do in the past, leaving free agency as a little bit more of a wasteland, because in terms of top-end talent, there's just not going to be top-end talent in free agency like there used to be. So that is something definitely to keep in mind. Let's see. He says, the free agency thing, that is why the Browns were so aggressive in trying to trade for Brandon Ayuk last offseason. And obviously they could apparently see Amari Cooper's fall off coming, he notes here, because boy, did he ever fall off. Cleveland would have tried to go hard after T. Higgins if he was a free agent, like most teams would have. And again, this just speaks to the nature of the teams and what they like to do right now. The Bengals coming out and saying they're either going to, they're going to franchise T. Higgins and then work on a long-term extension, but T. Higgins is not expected to hit free agency, meaning there's not much in terms of wide receiver talent at wide receiver in free agency this year. He says, I've asked, not gotten any answers about whether drafting Ward instead of Sanders would impact the Browns' plans for a veteran QB or not. It seems that not just the Giants, but other teams just aren't as high on Sanders. And that is another thing that has been coming out strong from the Combine. And it's something that we have to pay attention to. Coming out of the Combine, and I'll talk about Cam Ward more, I'll talk about Shedeur more here as we go on, but the growing consensus coming out of Indianapolis now is that Cam Ward is locked and loaded QB1 in this draft class, and it's not even close. There's a wide gap between Cam Ward at 1 and then the next tier of 2 quarterbacks, which is Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart, and some people are even saying Dart over Sanders. So, and then the gap from those two to the rest of the quarterbacks in this class is even bigger. So that is kind of some changing, opinions that has come out now from this draft class that says it doesn't mean that Shedeur Sanders won't go high, and he lists New York Jets, Las Vegas Raiders. Trading up has been talked about, but it seems that many teams see a gap, like I just said, between Ward and Sanders. And I did a whole episode. You guys can scroll back, go watch it, go watch the video, whatever, about Cam Ward when I broke down what I saw from him on film. I was super excited, and I even said at one point, I think I've said multiple times, if I were the Browns, I would be trying to find a way to trade up to 1 with Tennessee just to make sure I get him. I think he's that good. I think he has that much potential. And I love what I saw from him on tape. He went to the Combine and just nailed the interviews. He made such an impression. And he just seems like he is so focused on football that it's going to take a lot for him not to be successful in the NFL. And I'm really, really high on Cam Ward. Jared goes on, he says, I get the thought, but I personally do not have the same gap between Ward has shown to be more explosive. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not have the same gap, but Ward has shown to be more explosive. Absolutely, that is true. Other teams have basically given up that Myles Garrett will be available in a trade. So, I said earlier, don't think that Garrett is getting traded. The sense I get is that Andrew Berry, noting that Nick Chubb will hit the market, is out of respect for Nick Chubb so that they can negotiate based on the market. Blake and Kenny did a good job breaking that down on the previous episode. He says he has no idea if the two sides want a reunion, though we have heard reports that Nick Chubb would like to remain in Cleveland as a Brown, retire that way, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully they can get something worked out based on what the market says. And then shortly after the PFWA meeting, got more confirmation that the Giants are probably out on Shedeur Sanders, but that Cleveland is open to moving out of 2 if the right offer comes along. This episode is sponsored by Butcher Box for Pets. Browns fans, it's about time the Dawgs offered you something for the real dogs in your life. Our furry friends aren't just pets, they're part of the family, and you wouldn't let yourself or your children eat strange meat from questionable sources, and your dog shouldn't either. Right now, head to butcherboxforpets.com/dogs or use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, to get 20% off your entire order. At ButcherBox, they believe in real ingredients. Their pet foods have been developed and certified by a vet nutritionist to contain zero artificial flavors or preservatives. You get protein-packed formula with over 50% of the recipe comprised of third-party certified humane ButcherBox meat, plus functional ingredients like pre- and postbiotics to support your dog's vitality and digestion. And ButcherBox even removes the guesswork for you. Their custom meal plans are perfectly portioned to fit your dog's nutritional needs based on 8 factors, including age, weight, and activity level. I know my home wouldn't be the same without Odie, our 100-pound golden who thinks he's a 10-pound lap dog, and it gives us peace of mind knowing that we're giving him quality food instead of that factory processed garbage from the store. And speaking of the store, no need to add dog food to the shopping list ever again. ButcherBox delivers their high-quality food right to your door on the right feeding schedule for your dog. And you can change, modify, or pause your plan at any time. So head to butcherboxforpets.com/dogs and use promo code DAWGS for 20% off your order. It's time for all of us dogs to give all of our dogs the nutrition they deserve. So let me move over here to the second article he posted, everything that the rumors and stuff that he's hearing out of Indianapolis. And this is the one where I really want to spend a lot of my time. So we're going to start. He's got it broken down by a specific rumor mill. This one is the Cam Ward rumors. So he says Cam Ward is by far the top quarterback in this year's NFL draft. Okay, so that kind of contradicts a little bit of what he said the day before about he didn't see that wide of a gap. But this time he's saying now it's by far the top quarterback in this year's NFL draft. And he's not saying that this is what he himself personally believes, but this is the consensus out of Indianapolis. Pretty much to a person, everyone believes the Browns will be selecting Ward. Well, that's good news for me. I want Cam Ward in Cleveland. I would love if that were to happen. I'm not getting my hopes up because I do think either Tennessee, I've said before, they'd be stupid to pass on him. They need a quarterback in the worst way, just like we do, just like the Giants do, just like the Raiders do, just like the Jets do. All these teams need a quarterback. Somebody's coming up here to take Cam Ward. He is probably going number 1 overall. So if the Browns don't move to 1, I don't see how they end up with him. He says, I am struggling to trust that a very secretive organization, meaning the Browns, that doesn't have the first overall pick, is making their intentions known to the whole NFL world so clearly. What is the end game for letting everyone know what they are doing? Meaning that the Browns want Cam Ward. It could give the Tennessee Titans a lot of leverage or force a team like the New York Giants to trade ahead of the Browns. And maybe that's what Cleveland wants. Maybe they're playing chess games with everybody. He says, I still worry a bit about the fit between Ward and Cleveland's offensive system, but head coach Kevin Stefanski has made it clear that talent over fit is the way they think. And I know Blake's talked a lot about the fit with Shedeur Sanders in Kevin's offense and all that kind of stuff, and I get that. Cam Ward has way more talent, in my opinion, than Shedeur Sanders. He's got a much higher ceiling. There's more to work with there. And we love Kevin Stefanski on the show, but hey, the Browns have another bad season. Kevin's not here next year. They get a whole new offensive system. All of a sudden, maybe Shedeur doesn't fit, and he doesn't have the talent to make another system work as well as a guy like Cam Ward would. So I agree. I would still go talent over fit if it were me, but I know that's me. Hey, you guys, and as you're watching this, drop comments. Would love to hear what you guys think about these things. Moving on now to his Shedeur Sanders rumors. Of all the rumors I've noted in either the day 1 or day 2 articles, the one that has gotten the most pushback here in Indianapolis is regarding Sanders' time with teams. While others have heard the same thing as I have, sources have also come out to state clearly that Sanders is very good, high IQ, ran the whole deal in Colorado, and more. Can the two things be true at once? Could Shedeur have struggled with a few teams and been great with others? Very possible. Now, what he's talking about there, Shedeur Sanders apparently, based on some teams' interactions and meetings with him, was having a little trouble. I don't know if it was the recall of the offense. They give him scenarios and plays and things like that. So how quickly can you learn a new play, recite it back, all that kind of stuff, offensive schemes, things like that. Kevin Stefanski said he was very impressed with Cam Ward's recall and ability to recite things and come back and all that kind of stuff. Some teams have said that Shedeur struggled a little bit. Other teams have said, nah, it was all good with us. But just something to keep in mind. He says it was suggested to me on multiple occasions that the Raiders and more likely the Jets are hoping that Sanders will fall to them. And I think that if nobody trades up to get him, there's a chance that happens. He says Sanders is not considered on the same level as Ward here in Indianapolis. Again, that is one of the things that the drumbeat has been steady all week long. It's Ward is QB1, and there is no contest about it. He says, I was surprised. Now, this next bit here this is a concern for me, and I'll bring this up on a future episode with Blake and Justin, see what they think. But he says, I was surprised by Shedeur's lack of overall size, not just his height when I was standing near him. Size is not a skill, but it is a trait. From being on the same level as Sanders and just 3 feet away, his shoulders look narrow, along with just an overall slender build. Now, that doesn't mean he won't be successful, but it did stand out to Jared. And that is one thing that I'm not the biggest guy in the world, so whenever I see these guys listed as, 6'1", 6'2", 215, it's like, oh, that's pretty big. But, watching the tape, Shedeur definitely is smaller than a guy like Cam Ward. Cam Ward's got an NFL body. Cam Ward has an NFL body, and I know all the stuff coming out. His hand size measured at 9 inches. Shedeur's was 9 3/8, and everyone's concerned about. And I saw somebody even post a quarterback with small hands can't succeed in the AFC North. Joe Burrow has 9-inch hands, and everybody made a big deal about that. Pretty sure he's doing okay. So the only place where the smaller hand size would concern me with Cam Ward, because it has nothing to do with the way he can throw the football. I've seen him on tape. The throws he makes, the zip, the velocity, and the arm angles, I'm not worried one bit about that. It's the fumbling. So he has a tendency to the way he holds the ball in his hand when he's moving around the pocket and scrambling. It can open the possibility for fumbles, for the ball to get knocked loose in his hand. And for what I understand, I should have gone back and looked at the actual stats so I had the numbers correct. But at Washington State, he had a big fumbling problem, lost a lot of fumbles during his time there. Last year at Miami, I think he only had 2 the whole year. So obviously it's something that he understood was a problem, and he has already taken whatever necessary steps he needed to correct it. And that's another thing I do like about Cam Ward is he has definitely shown self-motivation and drive to get better and to make himself better at every step through college. And everything he talked about in his interviews and stuff at the Combine just reiterated that. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the rumors on Shedeur Sanders. Now, another thing that came out this week, Abdul Carter, seen as possibly the best player in this draft, possibly the number 1 overall pick, the best edge rusher, all this stuff. Came out, these guys all get their medical evaluations done. I think it's Wednesday night before the Combine starts and all that stuff. Abdul Carter got his done, and they found there is a stress reaction in his right foot. Okay, so I actually, let me look at this. I went and read Barry Shuck did an article, and he talked about this whole stress reaction thing. He said, so what is a stress reaction? So a stress reaction in the foot refers to a localized area of bone pain and potential swelling caused by repetitive stress on the bone, often from overuse in activities like running, where the bone is experiencing microscopic damage without enough time to heal, essentially acting like a bone bruise before progressing to a full stress fracture if the stress continues. Symptoms usually improve with rest and can be felt in the midfoot, particularly around the metatarsal bones. So this, I think it was Adam Schefter reported this first and everything, and they said, he's kind of got 2 options. Does he go ahead and have surgery? He'll miss his pro day. It's an 8-week recovery time. They got to insert a screw into the foot to fix this thing. It came out, doctors advised him against having the surgery. He decided not to have it. He is going to participate in Penn State's pro day, all that kind of stuff. But just keep in mind, if he were to elect to have the surgery, after the pro day or after the draft and all this stuff, it is an 8-week timeline for that recovery. Let's see. He said either a team's medical department is okay with the risk or they are not, and that will decide if Carter's stock is hurt much by the stress reaction injury. Carter came out himself and said he doesn't expect this injury, this report to impact his draft stock in any way. He says, for what it is worth, I have long believed that Carter was going to be the Browns pick if he was there at 2, when it was assumed that Tennessee would select Cam Ward at 1. So Jared was very much thinking that it was going to be Abdul Carter at 2. So the thing with Abdul Carter for me, going back and looking at Andrew Berry's history in the front office under Berry and the way they draft players, they've never taken a defensive end higher than round 3. Alex Wright is the highest defensive end they've ever taken, and he was a 3rd rounder, and then it was Isaiah McGuire in round 4. So to take a defensive end in round 1, obviously the Browns haven't had many first-round picks to work with under the Andrew Berry regime, so we don't have a long track record of that, but they've also not put a high priority at the position other than trading for Zadarius Smith, which that was only a, 5th round pick they traded for him. So it's not like they invested a lot to get him here. And they've definitely drafted defensive tackles more aggressively and higher than they have defensive ends. So that's why, if you ask me, my personal opinion, if the Browns don't get Cam Ward at 2, say they stay at 2 and Tennessee or the Giants or somebody trades up and they take Cam Ward 1, I think the Browns will legitimately look at a trade down, or they will take Travis Hunter. I think that the Browns have shown more aggressiveness and more priority on those positions that Travis Hunter plays. They've taken Greg Newsome, a cornerback, in the 1st round. They've spent a 2nd round pick on Elijah Moore. They've utilized multiple 3rd round picks every year on wide receivers. So they've traded for Jerry Jeudy and extended him. They traded for Amari Cooper. So I could see them taking Travis Hunter at 2 before they take Abdul Carter, which might be kind of crazy for a lot of people out there watching this. I mean, and Abdul Carter might very well be the best player in this draft. But with the positional value, again, the Browns term here, on receiver, on cornerback, I would not be surprised if Ward goes 1, they pass on Carter and take Travis Hunter at 2. This episode is brought to you by Danger Coffee. Browns fans, we talk about how Danger Coffee is made free from mold toxins that are in 45% of the world's coffee, but that's not all that Danger Coffee has to offer. Mineral and nutrient deficiencies are a big deal. They make you feel sick, tired, stressed, and they can give you brain fog. These deficiencies negatively affect your immune system, your digestion, sleep, metabolism. Have you ever wondered why you get an initial burst from your coffee, but then you get that little crash not long after? Danger Coffee's patent-pending process remineralizes your body with more than 50 trace minerals and electrolytes, leaving you more energized, engaged, powerful. These micronutrients enter the cells to boost performance. They bind to toxins to provide detoxification support. I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line, guys, is minerals matter, and most of us really don't get enough of them on a daily basis. Danger Coffee delivers micronutrients, plus it gives you access to the minerals you already have. Head to dangercoffee.com, use our code DAWGS, DAWGS, for 10% off your order, and that code can be used over and over, so you get 10% off every order you make using code DAWGS. It's time to start every day off with a cup of coffee that gets you going and actually keeps you going. dangercoffee.com, code DAWGS. All right, so let's move into Jackson Dart's hype. The next part of Jared's article here, he says, as we shared almost a month ago, the hype is confusing to many, including some in the NFL. There are long-time draft analysts at the NFL Combine that like Dart as a late 1st, early 2nd round pick, and one source that he trusts has him actually rated over Ward. That's interesting. Reporting around teams in Indianapolis seems to end up more in the, I guess there are some teams that really like him, but very little weight behind it. If there were betting odds on Dart's draft position, I'd most likely take the under very quickly. So we'll see what ends up happening with Jackson Dart. It just doesn't seem like, I saw another rumor, I forget who it was, and they said that the hype surrounding Jackson Dart in Indianapolis or coming out of Indianapolis isn't really real. So just something to keep in mind when looking at these quarterback prospects. And then he does do a couple more talking about Myles Garrett, we've already talked about that. We don't need to go any more of that. So other random notes, he says, with 11 or 12 picks, Cleveland is not a place that agents will probably want their undrafted free agents to sign this offseason. So UDFAs is a spot where Andrew Berry has been really striking gold the last few years. It might be a little bit more difficult to get those guys to Cleveland this season. Defensive tackles. I just mentioned this. Defensive tackles have been getting a lot of attention from the Browns. I believe that the Browns would use a higher pick on a defensive tackle than they would a defensive end. It's just from the way they operate, the track record, the things they've done in the past, that's how I feel they're going to approach that defensive line. This draft class is risky at the offensive tackle positions, but it's loaded on the interior, which could see Cleveland think ahead at guard and center, along with drafting Zach Zencher last year. So again, maybe they don't take a tackle high in this draft anywhere. Maybe they focus more on a guard like Donovan Jackson, a really highly rated guard out of Ohio State. If he ends up being there at like 33 or something like that. More than a few defensive backs and tight ends really impressed at the combine. Quarterbacks, except Ward and Sanders, will throw. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the notes and rumors and everything from Jared Moeller, but just really interesting stuff there about what he's hearing about the Browns and everything. And it does seem like there's this growing consensus out of Indianapolis after the combine that if the Browns have their choice at quarterback, they're taking Cam Ward. It's starting to feel more likely that they would pass on Shedeur Sanders if Ward is gone, and they would opt for somebody else, like I said, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter. Maybe they trade back, whatever the case may be. But here are some other rumors that I've kind of collected here, and I just want to run through some of these. Matthew Stafford, this came out the other day. Obviously, there's been talk, well, could the Browns trade for Matthew Stafford, all that kind of stuff. I've said for weeks now, that's a long shot. I mean, anything's possible, of course, but pretty long shot, especially considering Stafford came out and said he wants something upwards of $50 million a year. That's probably a little too steep for what the Browns can do at the quarterback position right now, but it came out the other day, very likely Matthew Stafford will stay on with the Rams with a new deal. I don't think that's set in stone. I think there's still some other rumors coming out that, well, maybe there are some talks. The Raiders apparently had a very good deal in place or on the table for Matthew Stafford. So we'll see how this ends up shaking out with Stafford, but I would say completely off the table for the Browns. The New York Giants, they were also all in on Matthew Stafford, but with this report coming out that he's probably staying in Los Angeles, all the talk, all the rumors from the combine is that the Giants are hyper-focused on getting both Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams to stay in New York, to play in the same stadium, but just with different jerseys. So they want them playing for the Giants. I saw a rumor Giants would still be interested in trading up to number 1 overall to take Cam Ward to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, even if they do get Rodgers to sign on with them. And that's, again, Aaron Rodgers is just another name, kind of linked in some places to the Browns. The Browns need to be linked to pretty much every quarterback that's potentially available this offseason because on our roster, we have 0. So that's pretty important. Another quarterback that looks to be out of the running for the Browns, a guy that we've talked about, a guy I know a lot of you guys like, Justin Fields. Saw a rumor the Steelers are out on Russell Wilson. They're not interested in bringing him back, but they are interested in re-signing Justin Fields. They didn't want to pay him a super big contract, but apparently the New York Jets are trying to get Justin Fields to come to New York and play for them. So the rumor that I read, and this is another source in Indianapolis, said the contract that Justin Fields signs, when he does sign it, after free agency opens up, will be a lot bigger than what most people are expecting. So it's probably going to shock some people what he actually signs for, whether it's in Pittsburgh or New York. And those sound like the two destinations most likely to have a shot at Justin Fields. The Falcons general manager came out and said that they fully intend to move forward with Kirk Cousins as their backup QB behind Michael Penix Jr. Now, again, that could just be trying to drive up the trade price because they've got, I forget the date, is it March 12th, the league start? I think if they don't cut him or trade him before, well, I guess they can't trade him. If they don't cut him before March 12th, then a $10 million roster bonus kicks into place for Kirk Cousins, and they got to pay that out to him whether they end up trading him or not. So more likely than not, in my opinion, I think Kirk Cousins probably ends up getting cut. I think they're going to eat their cap hits with him for the next 2 years to try to save that $10 million roster bonus. But, if they can get a team to come in and say, hey, we'll trade you this, that, and the other to get Kirk Cousins, maybe they pay out that roster bonus just so it's ready to go, and then they can trade him and spread out their cap hits a little better. That stuff is all very confusing, but again, it's another quarterback that's linked to the Browns that, it was talked about this week in Indianapolis. I had some notes in here. We already talked about Abdul Carter, so we'll move on from that. So I saw Jahad Campbell, the linebacker from Alabama. These are just some other quick random rumors and notes. Teams apparently are super high on this kid, say he will definitely be in the top 20 of picks at the linebacker position in the draft. James Pierce Jr., another edge rusher. Elite talent, had a good showing at the combine, but the rumors coming out now are that he is going to fall in the NFL draft because he has off-field issues, poor attitude, just does not sound very good surrounding James Pierce Jr. So a guy that I would not want to see the Browns have to deal with, because if you've already got off-field issues and a poor attitude with your college team, which I believe was Tennessee for him, probably not going to be much better in Cleveland. Mike Green, another top edge rusher, could be a top 10, top 15 pick even. Just a note here, he does have prior sexual assault allegations against him. Now, like with Deshaun Watson and everything else, innocent until proven guilty, but just something to keep in mind when discussing Mike Green, and probably not a player with the whole experience with Watson. I just don't even want to deal with that. Let's see. Another rumor, the talk in Indianapolis is that Jalen Milroe, the quarterback from Alabama, is most teams' quarterback 3. And that the hype around Jackson Dart isn't really what it's being cracked up to be. A lot of teams apparently think that Jalen Milroe does have multiple skills. I mean, he's a freak athlete. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's super fast and just a great runner. Just his decision-making, his accuracy issues, those kinds of things, trouble, where he can possibly go. But I do think he's going to end up going second round to a team that already has a quarterback in place, similar to what the Eagles did with Jalen Hurts. They had Carson Wentz. They took a flyer on Jalen Hurts in the second round. That worked out pretty well. So I think that there's a likelihood that a decent team takes a shot on Jalen Milroe. So we'll see how that all ends up shaking out. But I just want to jump in here, talk about these rumors. There's just so much going on. I feel like I have been posting on social media all week, this is only Saturday afternoon, so I can't even say all weekend yet, but there's just so much coming out of Indianapolis. It's hard to keep up with. And it all pertains so heavily to the Browns because we have that second pick and we need a quarterback. And there's really just one, in my opinion. And we'll get on. We'll talk with Blake and Justin after all this. And whenever we do our 500 episode celebration, we'll talk to our guests as well about their opinions on Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. But for me, you guys know, and I've been saying it for a while, but I'm going to keep with it. It's Cam Ward, QB1. And with all this stuff coming out of the combine, I'm actually growing a little bit more hesitant on Shedeur Sanders at 2 if Ward goes number 1. Again, I do still subscribe to the idea that you got to have a quarterback to really have much of a chance to do anything in this league. But I don't know. I have not really decided how I feel about it. At the moment, there's definitely some hesitation now on my part. But I'm locked into Cam Ward as QB1. If the Browns have a shot to take him, I believe they need to. And then I'm not saying that I want them to take Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders, but my belief, if I had to bet right now, it's that if Ward goes 1, the Browns stay at 2, that they would pick Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter. But we'll see. Maybe things will change going into the draft. It's going to be crazy. There's just so much stuff to talk about all the time, and I'm here for it all. It's a great time. Best time of the year if you're a Browns fan, right? All right, so that'll wrap it up here. Let me know what you guys think about all those rumors. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, tap the notification bell so you don't miss anything new, especially our announcement for when we do reschedule for the third time, or I guess the second time, the 500 episode celebration. We are going to get there. I promise you, it's going to be a great live show. We got some guests that need to be in the studio, and that's the big reason why we had to cancel for tomorrow, because it wouldn't be the same not having these people in the studio with us. So that's all I'm going to say about it. Just stay tuned. We'll let you guys know when that gets set for, and we'll go from there. So let me know again what you guys think about the rumors, and anything that I didn't mention that you've heard, that you've read, drop it in the comments, and we will dive into all of it on our upcoming episodes this week and next week and all the days and weeks heading into the NFL draft at the end of April. So thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys more than you know. And until I see you guys in the next one, let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dawgs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dawgs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedawgspodcast.com.
This episode is brought to you by Boden Sports. Browns fans, Boden Sports is your one-stop shop for all your athletic gear. Boden started out perfecting and manufacturing the best balls in the business. Yeah, if that sounded dirty, that's more about your mind than my words. But hey, it's true. Baseballs, softballs, footballs, basketballs, volleyballs, soccer balls, you name it, and Boden has engineered the highest standard sports balls available. And now they offer more than just sports balls. If you got kids playing baseball or softball, Boden has batting gloves and bats to go along with both game balls and training balls. If you're into basketball, Boden makes basketball specifically for indoor or outdoor use. Heck, Boden even has all the equipment you need for pickleball, which is one sport that I hear everyone is playing, and yet I still never have. And I need to fix that soon. But don't miss the backyard games section of Boden's website, where you can order everything you need for this upcoming outdoor season. Pool balls, backyard volleyball nets, croquet, bocce, horseshoes, cornhole, and more. Right now, you can get 10% off your entire order at Boden Sports, BADEN sports.com/dogs, DAWGS, and use promo code DOGS when you check out. That's 10% off all the top quality sporting gear you need this season. BodenSports.com/dogs.